Welcome to the Unlock 360 podcast, where education leaders share how they're turning vision into action, one system, one school, and one student at a time, because strong systems give every learner a better shot at success. Welcome back to Season 4 of Unlock 360, everyone. If you are tuning in for the first time, I'm your host, Wendy York Davoud, and we have joining us today another fantastic guest, Dr. Jamie Harper Martinez. Jamie serves as the Assistant Superintendent of Curriculum and Instruction at Van Alstyne Independent School District in Texas. And in this role, she oversees curriculum development, instructional programs, and educational initiatives across the district schools, serving approximately 2,800 students. Welcome,
Yes,
Jamie.
hello. Hello, thank you for having me.
It's so good to have you on our show. And someone like not too far. So I'm actually posted up here in Fort Worth, Texas, and
Hey.
looks like you're not too far, just east of us. So
That's right, pretty close.
yeah. To get us started today, will you share a bit about your journey in education that led you from wherever you started to becoming the assistant superintendent?
Okay. I probably shouldn't and share the year I started and give away my age, but I did start teaching in 99, 2000. So I've been doing this for a little while. I began teaching at the high school level where I was a cheer coach and a one-act play director, a UIO coordinator, and all the things in addition to my classroom duties. But over the years, my family had moved a couple of different times, and so I took positions at our local districts where what was available, and ended up teaching at a junior high and then at an elementary school. So I've got experience across the board. After teaching at an elementary school, I chose to go ahead and get my master's in about 2007, 2008, because I knew I wanted to be a principal. I've worked for some amazing educators and administrators, and I knew that that is something I wanted to do, was to be able to support the adults in education, because I don't feel like they're always as well supported as they could be. And so that was my goal. And I was a campus principal at a junior high and an elementary for several years. And then I joined Van Alstyne ISD in 2017 in my current position.
Okay, nice. And prior to Van Alstyne, where did you serve?
My last district before Van Alstyne was Chapel Hill, Mount Pleasant in Northeast Texas.
Okay.
Before that, I was at a small school called Winfield ISD. It actually no longer exists. It was kind of
Interesting.
absorbed into Mount Pleasant ISD.
Okay.
I started my teaching career at a small school called Avalon between Waxahachie and Ennis, in
Okay.
the South Metroplex area.
So you have moved around a little bit.
Yes, we ended up moving a little bit, but we're pretty settled now.
Spreading your impact. I love that. And yeah, and I think that's the beauty in working with adults in the system, is that you can take the impact that you once had on one classroom with, or even multiple class periods of students, and really spread that. So that's wonderful. Thank you. In your district, will you share with us what are like the top priorities, for this particular school year or for the coming school years that you have in place?
Okay. Van Alstyne ISD is growing rapidly. We do a demographic study every 6 months to help us stay on top of our growth. And this year, we started school with more kids than our demographers thought we would have at the end of October. And so right now, our focus is on keeping up with the growth and
Okay.
making sure that we have the appropriate systems and processes in place to ensure that we can keep our academic success high as new kids join our system. That's
Okay.
been our focus the last couple of years.
Yeah. Okay. And how do you do that? What are some of the things that you're putting in place to ensure that they are still being successful?
When I began this role in 2017, I joined and they had just hired a secondary curriculum coordinator and an elementary curriculum coordinator. So the three of us worked together for a couple of years. But since we have grown, we've been able to add several positions. I now oversee a team of 11, which includes
Wow. Okay.
district-wide instructional coaches. Our district testing coordinator works under me. Our District 504 coordinator. basically, we've been able to put supports in place to help our administrators keep up with the growth on their campuses. And we ensure that we start hiring well before spring break every year. We start posting positions based on the projected numbers so that all of our kids are well taken care of. One of my responsibilities is to ensure the resources and materials and things are in the classrooms for our teachers when they join us. And so I'm always telling my superintendent, please do not add a spot 1st of August because I can't get them materials until a few weeks out. And so we do our best to keep our hiring ahead of the growth so that we can take care of our kids.
I'm so excited to be chatting with you today and just learning a little bit about the district because, unfortunately, so many that I have on the show or just whom I interact with
Mhm.
and, my role outside of the podcast
Sure.
are, experiencing the opposite, declining enrollment, school closures,
Mhm.
which is really just heartbreaking when you think about how that's impacting how things are impacting public education. So what do you all attribute the growth to that you're experiencing?
Part of it is our location. I mean, we are on the 75 corridor, and folks are moving up from Allen, Plano, McKinney. We're just kind of the next stop up the road. The two cities most south of us, Anna and Melissa, also experienced this growth over the past several
Mhm.
years. And so a lot of it is location. But I also think it's because we have a good reputation as a district. Our academic standards are high. We have been rated high academically through the Texas accountability system. Our federal accountability scores have always been high. And so we work really hard to take care of our kids. And I think that translates when people are starting to look to move from where they are to a new home. A lot of people look at your school district and look at the ratings and talk to people about how does this program work and how did that program work and will they support my kid? And so I think that has a little bit to do with it as well.
Yeah, I'm sure it does. And I am also thinking about on kind of a different topic. I'm thinking about was taking a look at your website and noticed it looked like
Mhm.
you opened or are opening a new elementary school.
Mhm. Yes, we opened a brand new high school last year. So
Okay.
this is our 2nd year in our new high school, and we are opening Williams Elementary. Was very recently named Williams Elementary next fall, and so that will be our 3rd elementary school. We currently have a bond election coming up in November, and that will be for 2 further elementary schools, a new junior high, and some other needs around the district. But we are expecting to be at capacity in all of our buildings, including the new elementary school that hasn't even opened yet, within 2 to 3 more
Wow.
years. So,
Wow. Okay.
mhm,
And so, leading, serving as a leader amidst all of this growth,
mhm.
and leading, you have a big team. That's great
Yes.
to help out, but all these pieces, it's a lot. And
Mhm.
um, I was, just before the show, congratulating you on recently earning your doctorate, and
Thank
I
you.
think yes, and I think sometimes, educators that, hold are able to do that don't get the credit that they deserve. I mean,
Mhm.
especially while serving in such a challenging position, frequently, um, I think friends and family or even maybe community members, they look to doctors who actually practice medicine and,
Yes.
or lawyers who practice law and, really celebrate and honor those, distinguished, those credentials and that, title
Mhm.
that you've earned that's not easy to do, and especially not while doing all the things that you're already doing, and so I just wanna really congratulate you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. It was a 3.5 year journey for me. Lots of Sunday afternoons hiding in my office, but that keeps me away from my kids and my dogs. It gives me some time to work in the quiet.
Mm.
But I think it's worth it. And I would encourage any educator to look into that process because it adds to the field of research. And I think that best practices in education are all based on research. And if we're doing what we should be doing, that's where we're drawing our ideas from. So the more folks we have doing the work, the more good information we have to make choices.
Indeed, yes, yes. That's been a bucket list item of mine that I've not gotten around
Mhm.
to yet, but we'll see what the future holds, and Yeah, and so on that note, you did your dissertation around principal coaching and professional learning communities. We just kind of speak to that research and what you learned from it in general.
Sure. Um, as I mentioned earlier, one of the things that we need to make sure that we have in place as we're growing are the appropriate systems and processes to ensure that as a district, we're moving in the same direction. We talk a lot about lenses when I work with my campus principals. Our teacher's lens is typically their classroom or their 8 class periods that are coming through, and our campus principal's lens is their campus. But
Mhm.
my view is of the district in its entirety. And so my research really kind of focused on what impact can we make if we look at district level PLCs where we pull our principals in and really look at the vertical and horizontal alignment of what it is that we're doing. How folks
Mhm.
leaving one building, entering another one, what's happening there and what can we do to make sure we're supporting each other and it's more of a collaborative effort and there's no competition involved, that we're all working in the same direction. And so my research was really based on the district level PLC and what kind of impact that could have working with our principals, and then individual principal coaching. And I would be lying if I said I didn't enjoy that tremendously. I wish it was a process that I could have continued throughout. I am still a principal evaluator and I get to talk to them on a daily basis, but I do wish the actual coaching cycles and those kinds of things could have continued throughout, because it was a lot of fun and it gave me a lot of insight in my role as to what it is that our campus principals are still dealing with on a daily basis. It's been about 10 years since I was a campus principal. And so the world has changed, as we all know, but having those very deliberate, very planned, very intentional meetings allowed us to really talk about some of the challenges. But then when we pulled them all together, it was fantastic to see, and for them to see, we're not alone in this.
Yeah.
Everybody is facing pretty much the same challenges. And so we got to brainstorm um, some remedies for some problems and those kinds of things. It was really great, fantastic work, I think. I really enjoyed it, and our principals did as well.
Yeah, that it's powerful when
Mhm.
you can develop those professional learning communities at every level in the system. I
Uh-huh.
think frequently the focus is at the teacher
Uh-huh.
level and teacher teams. And um, when you can kind of think about how that work then is informing a professional learning community
Uh-huh.
of like a school site leadership team for the school site as a whole,
Mhm.
or a district leadership team comprised of
Mhm.
principals from across the district,
Mhm.
and have each team's learning inform the other team's work. It's super powerful.
It really, I think, was very impactful. It was nice to be able to work with them individually, but then watching them, the power of the research was really in the conversations amongst the principals
Yeah.
themselves. Even I'm just sitting back and listening to them. And we had everything from very experienced principals to first year principals, and watching those first year principals realize it's not just me, there's
Yeah.
a whole lot involved at every campus above and beyond the challenges I face as a first year principal. And so really the power is that we all have those resources at our fingertips. It's up to us to put those practices in place to bring those people together so that we can make it really a system and not a whole bunch of individual systems that we hope are all going the same direction.
Exactly. Yes. And I'm thinking about like developing those authentic professional learning communities,
Mhm.
and curious how you think, like how do you all go about doing that, whether it is at the teacher level or the school site
Mhm.
leadership team level or the district level.
Mhm.
How does Van Alstyne go about doing that in a way that they truly are very authentic, collaborative,
Mhm.
uh, as opposed to compliance or
Mhm.
uh, data management?
Yes. One of the things that came out in my research, and I was actually glad to get validated my own personal experiences with, but when you start talking about PLCs, sometimes that's an ugly word around
Mhm.
some places, because it was a compliance, it was a worksheet to fill out, it was a checkbox, it was, oh my gosh, they're making me do this. And then we looked at data, we saw data, it's like, okay, it exists, this is what it says. Now I'm going to put it in the drawer and never touch it again.
Mm,
I think the key is to take that data, figure out what story it tells, and then figure out
mhm,
what the next chapter is. What do we do with this to make the moves forward? And so, as a district, one of the things that we do, I have our instructional coaches spend a day or two on campus specifically for um, preparing our teachers for data meetings with their principals. After quarterly assessments or major assessments, our teachers have to go through their own data. And while my coordinators put that stuff together, they send it to them and then they kind of help them dig through it. So they're supporting the teachers in preparation for the meeting with the principal. And then our principals meet with all of our teachers and go over their data with them and what story does it say, what are you doing, what went well, what didn't go well, what do we need to tweak in the future,
mhm,
all the way from classroom level down to individual kids. Are you using this kid's accommodations when you look at changing something, they're not being successful, they did not grow. So they have those conversations. Once those conversations occur, the principals then either meet with my superintendent or sometimes myself, and we talk about campus-wide data. So you met with your third grade teachers individually. Now let's look at that as a whole, and let's compare it to across town's elementary school. And next year, let's compare it to all three elementary schools, and kind of see where we are. Do we have a system issue, or do we have an individual classroom issue? Or do I have a coaching issue and I need to work with my coaches on a different approach with a certain team? And so, really making sure that it is collaborative and it's not just, I've got to fill out this worksheet by myself, that they have support sitting there, understanding and knowing how to ask the questions to get folks to come to the conclusions that they need to move our kids forward. I think that's the key.
thank you for sharing that. I'm also thinking about the work that you did around individual principal coaching
Mhm.
and curious what you discovered are the key components for an effective principal coaching program.
I think, as with any sort of coaching, understanding how to ask the questions is a big part of the coach's role, because everyone understands and is more likely to follow through on conclusions and information that they drew themselves. And
Mm.
so, as a coach, sitting there telling someone what I see or this is what I would do is actually pretty ineffective. You want to be able to plan your questions in such a way that you can kind of guide folks to the right decisions, or to kind of think through some things in a different way. And so, I think the best part of the individual coaching was mainly the listening, because you can listen to people talk themselves into, oh, wait, I do know what I need to do next, without you having done anything but asking a question. And they have the answers within themselves a lot of the times, but it's nice to have someone to bounce those ideas off of.
Mhm.
Uh, a couple of our principals that went through that process are no longer with the district, but a couple of them are. And those that went through that process, we still have an incredibly close relationship, and we talk to each other on a daily basis. They'll call me, I'll run to their campus. Um, and a lot of times it's just being a sounding board. It's just listening. And, I've got this support if you need it. If you don't need that, tell me what you need. And us working together to put plans in place. So, the individual coaching of principals really is about listening to them and seeing what they need to make their teachers successful. But I think it builds powerful relationships that negate the typical, it's central office versus the campuses, which can be so detrimental when you're talking about student success. But when you're building those bridges and you're working with them on a regular basis, it really becomes, well, this is what we're all doing. We're all moving the same direction, and it's not a top down directives of, well, we do this and then we do this and then we do this, and I expect to see your data, and then I don't care what you have to say. Those are the things we try to avoid. It really is trying to work with our people and not against them.
Mhm. Yes, and that is very important. And I think that most district leaders that I speak with, and even school site leaders, would say that is how they are interacting with each other is a collaborative, let's work together stance.
Uh-huh.
Um, what are some of the challenges that can get in the way of that collaboration time
Mhm.
and that share, if you will, some of the real truths of
Sure.
what it's like. Yeah.
I think along with the growth comes the challenge of we have lots of students who didn't come through the same academic background that our kids have that have been here since kindergarten. And so we always have some academic challenges. We have challenges with kids who came through a school system that maybe had a different dress code or different expectation for behavior, those kinds of things. And so sometimes, particularly at the beginning of the school year, our campus leaders are so busy putting out fires that it's very difficult for them to get into grade level planning, to get in to have those individual conversations with teachers, for them to call us. My superintendent, the other assistant superintendent, and myself, we start every single day on a campus so that we can kind of
Thing.
see what's happening on that, on a campus every single day. That visibility alone helps our relationships with those principals because they feel like we see what they're doing and they can talk to us. But it really is, hey, how are you doing? Oh my gosh, so and so called. I've got to run down to kindergarten, or I need to go check on a junior level teacher.
Can I ask a question about that? Because I think that's a practice that I have. There are some other districts that I've met that do something
Mhm.
similar, but not everyone. I think it can be really powerful. I'm curious how you all go about doing it. Do the three of you go together to one day and then a different? Do you Are you assigned to each person to one, or do you rotate, and why?
We used to have a schedule that we attempted to follow. And my school superintendent, God bless him, would forget to look at the schedule all the time. So he would just end up wherever he wanted to end up that day. And so we have figured out that when we all three show up to a campus at the same time, it kind of scares the principals, and the teachers are like, what is happening? They think something is happening. And so we have got to where we don't really even talk about anymore where we're going. We just go. And right now it's easy for me. There's 5 campuses. I have set up, 5 days a week. I know where I'm going. And I've actually with my curriculum coordinators and my district level reading specialist, we do 7:30 a.m. walking meetings. So I know that at the high school, I'm going to be on the high school campus at 7:30 every Monday morning, and my secondary coordinator is also going to be there, and we're going to walk around together and check on everybody, but he and I can have our weekly touch base and check in and meet while we're doing that. So it's kind of two birds with one stone. Uh,
Yeah.
but, but the three of us, assistant superintendent, the other one, and my superintendent, we don't really have a schedule anymore. We all just know we're going to go somewhere and start the day. And every now and then we end up in the same spot. We try not to do that, but it happens. So,
Yeah, but I like that. So it's keep it simple, but you're not just assigned to one specific
yeah.
school or two specific schools, so you're able to build relationships with all of them.
Mhm.
Different approaches that, different district leadership teams are trying, but that sounds I like this walking meeting idea too. That's interesting. Yeah.
It's the bigger the team gets, the more support we have for our campuses. But the harder it is for me to have whole group meetings because what my
Mhm.
instructional coaches need to talk about is not the same as what my DTC needs to talk about or what my 504 coordinator needs to talk about. So I meet with them as a team monthly where we talk about general leadership things and general, issues in the district. But these individual meetings, walking meetings, those have been very helpful for me this year in just keeping track of who's doing what, where are we in our own processes.
Yeah. So another piece that you've mentioned that now I am curious about is with
Mhm.
your instructional coaches.
Uh-huh.
You mentioned they're district wide. So does that mean that they're housed at the district, like their offices are actually at the district office and they all serve all the campuses, or what is their role like?
They are all housed on a campus. However, they're going to serve more than one campus. I was able to add an additional math coach this school year. And so my math coaches are now split K4, um, 5, 8. And then my secondary curriculum coordinator works with our high school math teachers. So even though we're all district wide, it's more about our processes and things that we have in place and the way that we do things, from extended planning to our weekly planning sessions. We want to do that in a uniform manner across grade levels, across subjects, all of those things. So even though they're kind of district wide, they do have specific groups that they work with. Now, my science coordinator is K 12. She works with K 12 people. Um, Let's see. My reading specialist is K7, and then she has a coach who focuses more on K4, but she also helps with some of the other ones as we grow because there's just not enough of us to go around. But they're all housed on a campus, but the processes and the way we run things and any communication um, comes from me. It comes through our department.
Okay. Tell us who receives coaching. You mentioned that there's only so many of you to go
Mhm.
around, so I'm guessing you may have to make some decisions around who receives coaching,
Mhm.
how the coaching is provided, how often, that sort of thing. How do you
Yes.
all do that?
One of the things that we have put in place just this year is our coaches attend weekly planning sessions with their teachers, and so they're there as they're planning out the next week, which has actually helped tremendously for us to kind of get to know everybody and see what the challenges are. In addition to the data disaggregation that we do after every unit assessment, module test, any of those kinds of things. But our focus at the beginning every year is new to our district, new to teaching in general. And those folks get our focus at the very beginning of the school year. We're still attending all of the plannings, but when we're popping into
Mhm.
classrooms and talking about actual coaching cycles, folks that are new to us are the ones that get the most of our attention, probably the first quarter of the year. Our coaches and our coordinators meet with our principals once a week just to talk about hotspots. Is there something you're noticing that we're not seeing? Is there something that you're seeing that we need to know about,
Yeah.
now, or is it something you're going to fix and I don't even have to? We need to know about it right now. And so sometimes it's a collaboration between the coaches and the principals. We've all noticed this, whatever that may be, and so I need you to get in the classroom and kind of work with this teacher on this specific thing. Um, it's actually been pretty organic once you get past the first 9 weeks. Once you once the new has worn off and we're
Uh-huh.
confident that our new folks are familiar enough with the curriculum expectations, grading expectations, instructional behavior management, all of those things, it kind of has come about where it's like, okay, well, now I know who I need to focus on now 6 weeks in. I know 9 weeks in who needs help. And I mentioned the data disaggregation. We sit as a team and look at all that data as well. I sent 3 emails this morning about, hey, have you guys noticed? Did you see? Digging through, I'll put these two pieces of information together, and I have questions about this. Can we sit down and talk about it? And so we use the data to kind of drive some of that, but we also, when we have those kinds of questions, it really is a collaboration. I called my math folks in a couple of days ago just to talk about, I've noticed this in a particular grade level, what's going on. And so they can give me the human pieces of it. Well, so and so just had a baby and she's gone, and we've got a long term
Yeah.
subject in that room, and so those kinds of things. But it's a mixture of the data and the human pieces of it, and collaborations with their principals. They kind of guide the decisions on who needs the next coaching cycle, who needs more than one, and whose rooms we really need to focus on beyond the planning pieces of things.
Okay. All right. Now, are your coaches relatively new?
They're not.
Okay.
We've had coaches at the district level, probably 3 or 4 years
Okay.
at this point, and so it's not
Really?
really new anymore to the district. Our teachers are pretty used to having that. One of the main things that we try to overcome, and we have to overcome it every year because there's so much and new folks joining us every year, is that having a coach in your room is not a bad thing. Every
Yeah.
single person in the district can get better at what it is that they do. And
Yeah.
so having a coach is just about growth in a certain area. It doesn't mean you're a bad teacher. It doesn't mean that we think you're awful and you won't be here next year. Having a coach is about taking care of your kids more efficiently or helping you do something a little bit better. And so we try to get into everybody's rooms at least once or twice a week if we can. But then definitely those folks that are in the active coaching cycle see us a little bit more.
Yes, and I will, share something with you that you can probably make a lot better that could be helpful. Back in the earlier days of my coaching career, and the highlight of Tiger Woods' golfing career,
Uh-huh.
I would use a line, that I picked up from one of the trainings that I attended that was, "Even Tiger Woods has a coach."
Mhm.
his coach isn't better than him.
Mhm.
It's another set of eyes and ears. It's not about a, you know, it's not a hierarchy thing, and it's not
Mhm.
about who's better. It's just about having another set of eyes and ears on your practice. Someone else that does have expertise, they may not necessarily be able to drive the ball like you do,
Mhm.
but they have the expertise to support you and give you pointers and tips, and yeah. So
I love that. I'm probably going to share that with my coaches as a line that they can steal and use for themselves, but that's
yeah,
great.
we just need to. I mean, not that Tiger Woods isn't phenomenal, but
Yeah.
he had some
Yes.
some struggles in life, and then
Sure.
but finding like a modern day superstar to
Mhm.
plug in, yeah,
Yes,
same
that's a
thing.
good idea.
Hmm.
We try to model the idea of feedback at every level. Any training that I do, and we do a new teacher academy throughout the course of the school year, and we do summer trainings and all those things. We as a team ask for feedback at the end of every one, and it's just what did you think we should have done that we didn't cover? What could we have done better? What
Yeah,
questions do you still have? And we talk about that. We're asking for feedback because next year when we do this training, we want it to be better for the next group of teachers that are coming through. And so we do try to model that at every level, that the goal is to get better from wherever you are right now. The goal is just to get better.
absolutely, is so important. That is the only way that
Mhm.
any human or family or a team or school district or
Well, vote.
school is going to continuously improve, is to be uh, ready to learn and grow and innovate and try new things. And it's okay to make mistakes.
Mhm.
Learn from and get better. We need to do that
Yes.
to continuously improve. And Dr. Martinez, I am curious. Like, I'm really trying to put myself in your shoes and having this rapid growth with
Mhm.
enrollment, new schools, and I'm envisioning, you may have transfers, teachers or principals or,
Mhm.
people moving in roles, moving schools, in
Mhm.
addition to new hires. Um, what system or systems do you have in place to help streamline so that if I were to shift from, assistant principalship or principalship at this site to a new site,
Mhm.
that I would kind of be able to jump in and feel like I,
Mhm.
kind of knew what was happening and how to go about things.
I think one of the major pieces of that we have in place to support teachers who might flip flop, or even kids who might jump from one elementary to another because they've moved across town,
Yeah. Hmm.
is we have district level instructional focus documents, which
Oh,
means
very good.
everybody should be within 2 or 3 days of each other across the district in all subject areas. It shouldn't matter which building you're sitting at. And one of the things I actually work with our elementaries on is when they move to the middle school, the teachers at the middle school should not ever be able to say, well, I know which building they came from. The goal is they're all our kids and they all get an equitable education no matter where they're sitting. And so having the concrete um, focus documents that tell us where we should be instructionally, it doesn't matter which campus you're on. You should know exactly where your teachers are and what the expectations are for instruction and what it is they should be doing. We have a district wide student handbook that covers, all of the student expectations. Now, there are some sections for elementary and some sections for secondary, of course, and some different things like that. But basically, behavioral expectations are pretty high and they're pretty standard across the district. We don't have one that allows something and the other place doesn't. The expectation is for good behavior everywhere,
Hmm.
because we want that equitable education for our kids, no matter whose room or which campus they're coming from or where they're sitting. And the other thing that we put this into place last year. I do, and the other assistant superintendent, he and I work together on a principal leadership academy where we meet monthly, and then an
Nice.
assistant principal leadership academy where we also meet monthly. And we do some classroom observations and some T-test calibrations. We talk about leadership things. And then we actually have curriculum academies after the leadership academy where my curriculum experts come in and go, when you're doing a walkthrough at this grade level in this particular piece of curriculum, these are
Uh-huh.
your look fors. This is what you should be seeing. And it's the same across the board. So no matter where you're sitting, you're getting the same information, no matter which campus it is you're coming from.
Well, Jamie, it has been such a pleasure having you on our show today. So many moving parts in Van Alstyne ISD. Super exciting to hear about the growth you're experiencing and all the systems and structures you have in place to help people stay focused and feel like they're on the right path. If someone would like to learn more and look for an opportunity, potentially to join the district, where would they go?
First, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate the opportunity to share the good things that are happening at Van Alstyne. Our website is vanalstyneisd.org, and my email address is on there. Our job postings are on there should you ever be interested. We also utilize the Region 10 job postings. There's almost always something available. If you are interested in joining Van Alstyne, we'd love to talk to you.
Awesome, thank you. And I am trying something a little bit new. It actually came from a couple of weekends ago. Did a long weekend trip at the lake with my family, and we have a tendency to either get caught up in fishing or caught up in games. And so we had kind of done a lot of that, and I was thinking, what might be a good kind of just conversation starter
Mhm.
because we do tend to be a little bit competitive. And so, I said, how about like, let's just all go around and say like, I'm grateful for because,
Mhm.
and, it can be anything. It could be an actual thing. It could be a human. It could be a group of people. It could be about your job. It could be anything at all. So I'd like to toss that out to you, Dr. Martinez.
I am actually grateful for our team gratitude journal. We started that this year. And so, not every day, but most days, members of my team and myself list on a Google spreadsheet what we were grateful for that day. And when you're having a rough day, that's fantastic to look back on and just see all the great things that are happening, even if you had a rough day. So, I am grateful for a team that focuses on the positive and the things that they're enjoying about their work and their jobs and the fact that we have a place to share it.
I love that. And you must, I'm guessing you're also a fan of Brene Brown's and understand the value of practicing gratitude. So
Yes. Yep. Love her books. Got to see her talk a couple of times. Loved it.
she's great. Yes.
Yes.
Well, everyone, thank you so much for tuning in once again to Unlock 360. We will see you next time. Thank you for listening to the Unlock 360 podcast. Follow us on LinkedIn and YouTube and visit leadteachlearn360.com to learn more about us because every school deserves systems that work and leaders who can make them thrive.